Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Berry of Softvision, and today we're providing the readers of Future Publishing's magazines with a guide to the Internet.
I'm Paul Lavin, all-round computer journalist and Internet guru.
Well, thanks for joining us, Paul, because the Internet is obviously a very hot topic right now in the business world.
Hold on, Stephen. It's very hot for business, but the Internet is also very, very cool.
Well, that certainly is cool, Paul, but I've got a feeling that the people watching this video don't need it to be this cool. What they want to do is find out some useful information about the Internet.
Okay, fine. Let's take it back up a notch then.
Right, well, I think we've come down to the level that we need to be at.
I think so too.
Fine. Well, in the next hour, we're going to be looking extensively at the Internet, all of the things that are on there that you'll find of use and of interest. Lots of things to see, aren't there?
Well, we figure that you've either got on the Internet already and found the learning curve a little steep, or you're just about to make that jump and want a little bit more information first. So let's explore all the parts that people need to know about.
Fine. Well, let's move on now and have a look at the first chapter. Well, I know we're going to be having a look at a lot of hands-on activity in this video with the Internet, but is it worth just going back a little bit and getting a history?
Sure, there's some history behind the Internet. It isn't really that old, though. Started out as a Department of Defense project in the United States. I don't think that's of much interest to the people who are watching the video, though. They want to know what it can do for them, how it's going to change their lives.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to finding out how it's going to change my life, certainly.
Richard Longhurst, the editor of .NET Magazine, has been thinking about this for some time, and we've got him with us in the studio today. So let's get his reaction to how the Internet will reach out and touch every one of us in the near future.
There are a huge number of ways in which the Internet can be used when we're at work, and the most obvious benefit, I think, is electronic mail. So for the cost of a local phone call, you can mail anybody anywhere in the world. So if you have to leave a message for someone on the other side of the world, you don't have to wait for them to get up in the morning, which might be after you've left the office in the evening. You can just send them a mail message. It'll cost you a small amount of money, and it'll be waiting for them when they turn up for work, and then they can act on that. But then beyond that, you get into the whole issue of ordering goods and services over the Internet remotely. So you can sit at home, do your shopping, and then you're freed up time for leisure, doing things they actually want to do, rather than spending time traipsing around town doing the grocery shopping or whatever. As well as that, people are going to get away from publishing items such as magazines and compact discs, get away from unit publishing to publishing information. So when you buy a CD, you don't actually want to buy a physical thing. You want to buy the music that you can listen to. And now there's a way that you can buy a track, a song over the Internet. You download it onto your computer, and then you can listen to it. And that's going to change the whole way that the music industry works, and you're probably going to see a similar thing in the publishing industry. So there'll be a whole new range of information products that are just based on binary data, and so people will buy information rather than magazines or discs or games.
Well, it seems, Paul, that business is driving a lot of the growth on the Internet.
Absolutely, but still there's a room for an awful lot of fun. Let's find out what kind of recreation you can have on the Internet.
Okay.
Huge number of ways. Perhaps one of the most immediate things is, you think recreation, you think computer games. At the moment, most console games, PC games, they're just one or two player games that you sit at home and play. But very soon we're going to see a rapid growth in the number of multi-user games, where you can have tens, even hundreds of people just playing one game in one game environment. And so a lot of people playing role-playing games or even flight simulators, or they'll be flying a plane and flying against an enemy, or flying with a wingman who's living on the other side of the world. So this sort of virtual cyberspace area, if you like, will sort of be created, and people will come online and play multi-user games. But also, the Internet is a huge store of information. So if there's any hobby that you've got at home, say whether it's needlecraft or poodle rearing, there'll be a discussion group on the Internet where you can get on there, you can meet like-minded people, swap tips about which is the best brush to use for a certain type of dog or whatever it is. Huge number of things that you can talk about.
So can we look forward to playing all of our favourite games over the Internet?
Yeah, you can play Doom on the Internet, but you don't get a choice of whether you're a good guy or a bad guy.
Are you a bad guy?
Always.
Okay. That sounds like fun.
Fun is the middle name of the Internet right now. because we've kind of arrived in the middle of the era of the internet.
Yep.
For our kids, though, there's no escape. It's going to be seeing them at school almost every day from here on in.
Yep.
It's going to cause tremendous changes in education. Richard's been looking into that as well.
Okay, well, let's have a look at that now.
Perhaps one of the most bizarre educational things on there that I've seen is this sort of interactive frog dissection, where a picture of a little frog is transmitted over the internet, and then you can decide which bit of it you want to slice into first. Obviously, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and depending on which bit, where you cut, where you slice, you're then sent the next picture to see what has happened to your frog. So not only is this good news for the frog population, a lot of children can learn a lot about biology like that. Again, email comes into play. Children in any country can find out what children are experiencing on the other side of the world. They can talk to each other and swap experiences, which possibly brings you onto a sort of meaningful, deeper issue of if a oppressive government in a country is spewing out some propaganda, then if children have access to email, then they can easily get the other side of the coin or another opinion from children in maybe a freer country. Another good educational project is a telescope that is pointing at the sky somewhere from the States, probably Hawaii maybe. It's a good place for astronomers to visit. And schools can book time on the telescope and manoeuvre it to point at any position in the sky. They book half an hour with it, and then the telescope is attached to a digital camera, so that snaps a picture of the sky at any given moment, and that picture is zapped over the internet to the school. So in effect, any child, any school in the world has use of the most powerful telescope in the world, which is a great thing.
Well, it sounds like the internet's going to be very useful for any closet vivisectionists that might be watching.
Yes, but it's only one frog that has to be taken apart, no matter how many millions of school kids look at it.
The other thing I can see happening here is that the nature of book publishing is going to change, isn't it?
Well, yes, the internet has this feature called the World Wide Web that allows hypertext documents to be published quite easily and quite cheaply. It's going to change the way books are looked at. Children in the future will think that something printed on a page is very, very restrictive.
Okay. Well, we've already seen lots of diverse and interesting and fun information that we can get through the internet. What I'd like to do now is go to the next chapter where we're going to look at the sort of things you're going to need in order to get connected. Let's go and have a look at that now. Well, I can tell you that I'm looking forward to getting my hands into the internet and looking at how we can use it. But before we do that, we need to consider what hardware we need, don't we?
Yeah, you need some kit first. Luckily, because the internet has grown up from standards that are literally applicable to any computer platform, it can be a PC or a Macintosh or an Amiga or anything that you can plug a modem into just about.
So it's relatively hardware independent.
That's exactly right. You've got to have some sort of terminal or PC on your desk. If it's a PC, 386, 486, it doesn't make too much difference.
Right.
Of course, the other thing you have to have is a telephone line.
Sure. But obviously there's a bridge between the computer and the telephone line, and that's the modem, isn't it?
That's right. Until ISDN reaches a price where people will have it in their homes, we're going to have modems to connect to the internet.
What is ISDN? There's probably some people watching that aren't familiar with it.
Well, ISDN is a digital telephone line. You can get them almost anywhere in Britain now, but they do cost £200 to install. But once you get them installed, there's no additional expense above the ordinary telephone call for a voice call.
So that'll improve the facility. But can we use our existing analog telephone line?
Absolutely, with a modem.
With a modem. Okay, well, let's now talk about the modem and what types of modem we need to look at.
Well, we've brought someone from PACE here to speak with us, and he's going to tell us all about modems and what you need to get connected on the internet.
Okay, well, let's have a listen to him now.
Essentially, the choice is down to one of speed, performance, or the configuration of the modem, depending on whether you want to connect to a mainframe PC, a desktop, or indeed a portable. PACE manufactures PCMCA for the portable user. We have other portable products like the Microlin, and we obviously have the Linux range, which is our desktop range. These are available in speeds up to V34 currently, whilst most net users will find the 14.4 speeds acceptable. I suggest corporates really look at the 28.8 speed.
Now, unless I'm mistaken, that was the MD of PACE, wasn't it?
You can tell he's the one wearing the suit.
Right. Now, there's a lot of talk about modem speeds, and I think there's a lot of confusion as well. So over to you, Paul, for something of a explanation.
It's really quite simple. On one hand, you want the fastest modem you can get your hands on. On the other hand, you've got a budget. So every user has to decide for themselves. If you want to go for ultimate speed, that's ISDN or a very high-speed modem.
Yep.
If you've got a budget, well, you get what you can afford.
Right.
The internet experience is much better the faster you can go. It's more interactive.
Yep. Can we download more rich information?
Absolutely. Pictures, film clips, audio clips, you name it, the faster the better.
Right. Okay. And has Steve got anything else that we need to know about?
Well, once you've got your budget and your speed desires ironed out, there's a few more tips to buying a modem.
Okay, well, let's go and have a look at those now.
As I look through the pages of most computer magazines, the number of choices of modem products, there are hundreds. So clearly the first choice is one on price and performance, and it's an area we feature particularly well. With our full range of products, we are aggressively priced, and obviously the performance is as good as you would expect it to be. One of the big areas of concern is the difference between approved and non-approved products. In the UK, we have fairly stringent standards for BABT for modem approvals. I read in a magazine recently that people don't bother to get it approved because it costs money and it's a waste of time anyway. The reason they don't get them approved is probably they couldn't get it approved. The standards are very, very demanding, and particularly looking to Germany for EMC, which is electromagnetic radiation. It's very, very stringent testing. So all the PACE products are approved for the territories in which they're sold. Very important point. Finally, and perhaps of most reference to the corporate user, PACE offer a very, very substantial technical support service. We have bulletin boards, we have Flashback, we have our technical department who can not only answer queries, but we can actually tailor-make product or software in the product to suit particular applications. So we offer a complete bespoke service.
So as with all things, you shouldn't just go out and buy the cheapest product.
You're going to need a lot of support, Stephen. Getting onto the internet isn't easy yet. You're going to need support.
Right.
You can't say it enough times. Don't pinch the last penny, because you need to pay a little bit for that support.
Sure. Okay, well, we've considered the different types of computers that we can use to get onto the internet. We've looked at modems. We haven't really touched on software yet, have we?
That's the next chapter.
All right, see you in the next topic. Now, Paul, to put it crudely, the internet really is just a bunch of networks all connected together around the world, isn't it?
Well, crudely and factually.
Right.
So if you want to get on the internet, you've got to have the right network software. The software is called TCPIP.
Which stands for?
Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Don't worry about it. You need TCP/IP, and there's a bunch of different ways to get it. You can get it from a number of commercial providers of TCP/IP software.
Yep.
And if you've got a friend that's already on the internet, you can get it free.
Without doing anything dodgy?
Without doing anything dodgy, without ripping anybody off, there is free software on the internet.
Right.
But the problem is free software comes support free as well. So one reason to buy a commercial package is, of course, the support you get. But don't take my word for it. In the studio, we've got Joe L'Italian, who's from NetManage, that sells TCP/IP software for PCs. Let him explain why.
Sure.
It's a good question. I think from a corporate end user standpoint, there is always the issue of job preservation. And I think, I make light of it, but the real issue there is support. And although there are and always have been many free packages out on the internet, the concept is to really buy a package from a company that you believe in and a company that can give you the kind of technical support and the kind of base in which to further enhance the network within a corporation. So the concept of free software, sure, and it's available, it's always going to be available, but when the next wave of technology comes along, will that product keep in touch? Will somebody, the guy who's developing it at maybe a university, be able to support you and give you the kind of new product features and the kind of online support to be able to keep the product healthy?
So if we decide that we need the security of commercial software, are we going to have to pay a lot for it?
No, really. You can get commercial software quite inexpensively, and you can get free software. You just have to take the trouble and time to sort it out yourself.
So what should the person watching look for in software if they're going to choose some?
Let's ask Joe.
All right.
It has to be installation. I think if a customer can't get on the internet and easily configure his modem to be able to access, he's going to be frustrated. So number one, it's the ability to easily install the product and the ability to get online and get online quickly. That's really the major focus and the most important feature is if you can't get up and you can't get online, then you're in trouble. The rest of it won't even follow, won't even be important.
That's right. If you can't install it, what good is it to anybody? But when you get on the internet, you find out that you need more than just networking software. You need a telnet client. You're going to need a web browser. You're going to need an FTP client. You're going to need Archie. You're going to need Gopher. You're going to need Ping. You're going to need Finger.
Now, Paul, do you expect these people to know what you're talking about here?
No, but if they buy a commercial package, it'll all be in one box.
It always comes in a commercial product.
Most of those things can be found in most of the commercial products. There are differences, obviously.
So what do they do?
What do? They provide different utilities on the internet. We'll see some of them shortly. But you don't have to worry so much if you buy a commercial package. If there's part of it that you don't like, you can substitute another piece for it.
Right.
Joe will explain how that happens.
Okay.
I think the ability to be able to use other products with the Chameleon and the Internet Chameleon and both the LAN version as well is something that's really nice about it. We provide a transport layer with TCPIP, not to get too technical about it, but the ability of being able to easily add other products. There's a number of third-party products that work very well with the Internet Chameleon and the Chameleon. And also other products within the NetManage family, groupware type products, those sorts of things. I think probably the major point I would make about NetManage and Internet Chameleon and the product line is that we feel that this is one that plays into the most important part of the network, which is the guy who's sitting in front of the PC. There's a lot of great technology out there, but it's more important to make sure that these tools can be used than just they're there for technology's sake. So the most important part of the network is the guy sitting in front of the machine, and we build products to aid him.
So look for software with a broad suite of applications within it?
Absolutely, and then plug and play later on as you see fit.
Okay. What about the actual process of choosing the provider of the service to the internet?
Well, once you've got your software and hardware sorted out, that's the next question in the next chapter.
See you there.
Service providers on the internet are extremely important. In Britain, there's a couple of dozen now, but there are real differences according to the level of support you get and the quality of the service they provide.
So how does the average punter know what to look for?
Well, we've managed to corral one of the UK service providers, Bernard Horegi from Cityscape. Let's ask him how you can select the best service provider for your internet.
Right.
Right. We actually see it as there being four aspects to internet provision. Okay. There's the basic connection. How are you actually going to connect to the internet and exchange the information? Okay. So when you're looking for that, you have to know how good the infrastructure is of your internet provider. Do they have enough modems to support the users? Do they guarantee to provide a certain number of modems for their user base? For example, one modem for every 30 users, one modem for every 20. Then there's software, because you need software on your computer. You need the TCPIP software, which will actually translate the data to go onto the internet. And you need application software. Now, there's a myth that some providers perpetrate that don't worry about the software. Once you get on the internet, it's all free. This is blatantly untrue. Okay, it's mostly shareware. A lot of it's very technical to install. Okay. a number of providers are just starting now to provide disks of all the software that you require. For example, the basic software, electronic mail, Usenet News, World Wide Web, and often in very easy to install packages for Windows or Macintosh or whatever. Thirdly, support. It's only about 18 months ago now that to join the internet you would need an entire support team. You would either have to be a techie, someone who knew a great deal about computers, communication, network protocols, the actual structure of the internet. You would have to liaise with committees and what have you actually out on the internet. That's all changing. It is getting much easier to join, but still, are you going to know exactly why your low-level network software isn't talking to your modem in the correct way when it comes to day? So if a company has a good reputation for their technical support, another reason to go with them. Finally, one that's often overlooked because I suppose if you don't know about the internet and computers, you don't necessarily think to ask for this, is the actual services, the internet services provided once you've joined. Okay? Again, there is a myth that, don't worry, once you join the internet, everything's free. But facilities such as carrying your electronic mail reliably, do they actually hold and manage your mailbox for you, or do they expect you to find the software and install the software to do all that yourself? How good is their Usenet news feed? How many groups does it carry? How about web space? If you're not permanently connected to the internet, you can't have a web server. Okay, so I know that my company particularly actually provide web space for you once you're connected, so you can create a position for your company on the internet as if you were permanently connected, give yourself a web presence. Another service is the raising of domain names. Actually, rather than have the name of your internet provider attached to your email address, actually have your own company name.
Now, as I understand it, because the internet is such a raging success, a lot of these service providers are actually victims of their own success and making it very difficult for people to connect.
Well, sure. You have to check it out before you separate the money from your checking account. There's one internet service provider in the UK. I've not been able to get through to their technical support line for a month. Clearly, that's someone you need to stay away from. They're a victim of their own success.
So ring around and ask some loaded questions before you sign up?
Ring around, see if they answer the phone.
Okay. We talked earlier on about the different types of connections you can have, standard telephone lines, ISDN. Has Bernard got any advice for us there?
Well, sure. He's seen it all from both sides of the table. Let's see what he has to say.
The simplest interface to the internet is often a bulletin board. Okay? Rather than running the complex user software on your, say, PC meaning your personal computer, your Macintosh, whatever, you can actually rely on your internet provider to run it on their usually mini computer, their remote large computer for you. Whereas it's easy to access, you don't need much equipment, you don't need such a fast modem to access it, it's actually very limited. Okay? It becomes a keyhole sort of approach to the internet. You are seeing the view of the internet as given by their machine. Okay? Next, there's a number of intermediate protocols, such as UCP, that give certain aspects of the internet, such as electronic mail, Usenet News, simple file transfer, in a reliable, offline, batch mode way, which can be very good for business. For example, using UCP, quite a few large businesses are actually connected to the internet for just electronic mail over a simple modem, okay, which is very cheap, what have you. The real way to join the internet is using the full TCPIP protocol. This is the actual language spoken on the internet by all the different systems on the internet. Okay. Once you have full TCP/IP access, your machine on your desk can speak directly with any other machine connected to the internet at that time. This means that you can have your full power of your PC providing the user interface. You have these graphical, interactive user interfaces. Okay. It also gives you the flexibility of choice. Rather than choosing the news feed from your particular service provider, you could actually look to all the service providers in the world and decide, I'll take a news feed from, say, Reuters. I will take a special mail group service from another company, and I'll join in that research project at that University of Michigan or whatever.
So really horses for courses. But Bernard again is talking about the business side. I mean, what about the fun elements of the internet?
There's lots. Let's ask Bernard.
If you consider that the internet must by now have well in excess of 30 million users, then you're talking about a diverse population, all of whom have the ability to contribute to Usenet news groups, create their web pages, put files online. You're talking about virtually any hobby or interest that you have, whether it's serious, whether it's fun, whether it's sport, then there's going to be a great number of other people out there who are already talking about it. If they're not, you just have to set up your own site.
And what's fun about that, Paul?
Well, you can do anything you want on the internet. You decide what's fun. And chances are there'll be a couple of million people who might think that's fun too.
Yeah, I guess you have to be careful at the same time.
Indeed.
Okay, we haven't actually got our hands onto the internet yet. I'd really like to do that. I know the people watching are probably very keen now to try it out for themselves.
Sure, let's go surfing now. We haven't talked much about the World Wide Web, and that's the first thing we're going to visit in our hands-on chapter.
Right, well, let's move on and have a look at that now. Well, here's a moment of truth, because we're going to dip into the world of the internet. And they say, Paul, that you should never work live with animals and children. Now,
And you probably shouldn't work live with the internet either. But I guess that depends on what live means to you.
well, let's. What are we going to do?
Well, first we're going to connect to the internet and do some web surfing using the World Wide Web browsing tool in Internet Chameleon.
Okay, well, let's go and have a look at that now. So you've got a whole pile of icons here. What are these?
Well, yes, these are all the internet applications that come with Internet Chameleon. But I'm going to click on the custom icon and kick off a connection here. That couldn't be simpler. You just click on connect.
And it's dialing it for you.
That's right.
So it has all these numbers stored in.
Has a number stored in it, as well as your username and password and other elements of the service. Takes a few seconds to connect those, Stephen.
Right. Does software come supplied with those phone numbers, or does the user have to set them up?
No, you've got to put them in yourself because you may have a different provider.
Right.
Chameleon does, on the other hand, provide a lot of pre-configured numbers, and that number increases over time. I see we're connected now.
Okay, well, let's whiz in there again.
Okay, as you can see, it's come up with all the details of our connection. If you can pull back out of there, I'd like to get back to this, and we'll double-click on Web Surfer.
Yep. So we're online now, is that correct?
We're on the internet right now. Now, this file actually came from the disk. We're going to retrieve, go to URL, that's Uniform Resource Locator, and we have to do a little bit of typing here.
Oh dear, that's a worry.
HTTP is the way you start any web address. www is almost always the next thing in line.
Which is what?
Well, World Wide Web.
Okay.
And you want Cityscape.
Which is your service provider?
That's right. And they also have web pages too. So we're going to click